Talk to me.
No, you don't even bring the fader out. Leave the fader down.
All right, talk to me, John.
Testing,
You hear
testing.
yourself?
No, it's not lit up down here either. Because usually when I talk, I can see my lines going. Like from the back of that, I can see lines going, but it's not doing anything yet.
This
Yeah,
thing?
turn those on.
All right, I turned both those on. I don't see any power though.
So, the top one, there's a rectangular button on the right.
Here?
Testing, testing, testing. I can see it, but I can't hear it. Test, 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 testing. I still don't see it, but it's picking me up.
Connected here and back.
Testing, testing. Welcome to John Martin Talk. Test. Yeah, see, I see those red lines moving. Test, 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 test. Testing 1, 2, 3. Test, test. Welcome to John Martin Talk. No, still can't.
I see levels in the back coming out of his headphone jack.
Test, 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 test. Testing.
Watch out for your ears, John.
Okay. Testing, testing, testing. One. Yeah, I think I can hear myself. It's kind of low. Yeah, I hear it. I definitely, I hear it. It's definitely going. Let me look at the time real quick. 15. Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. Are we live? Okay. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. We had a few technical difficulties. Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Turn it down just a little bit, guys. All right, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. We have our producer is in Washington, D.C. as we speak, going to attend the Stop the Steal event tomorrow. So we're doing the best that we can without our good buddy Gabe. All right, let's get into this thing, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a great show for you planned today. I'm gonna read a letter to you from a senator, a sitting U.S. senator, and I'll tell you who it is in just a moment. And basically, he is responding to the calls from MAGA supporters that are asking him to vote with Josh Hawley on the Stop the Steal, the challenge to the election on January 6th. And we'll get into that. And then Joe Biden had a rally yesterday afternoon in Georgia. I don't know if you saw this or not. Of course, President Trump had a huge rally last night, probably 15,000 or more people there. And it was terrific. If you haven't seen it, you can go to John Martin Talks Facebook page, and we put it up there last night so you should be able to see it. But Joe Biden at his rally is telling President Donald Trump to stop whining and complaining. So we'll get into all of that in just a moment. But before we go any further, I always have to mention our sponsor, Big Daddy Unlimited, otherwise known as BDU. We come to you live every day, 8 o'clock Eastern, or as close as we can get to it here from Big Daddy Unlimited Studios in Gainesville, Florida. No matter when or where you're watching the show, look above the show and you will see a description to our show. Click on our sponsorship link. It'll take you to Big Daddy Unlimited, your Second Amendment headquarters, where you'll get factory direct pricing on guns ammunition, yes, guns and ammunition, and tactical gear, swag, everything you can imagine related to the Second Amendment, delivered at factory direct pricing right to your doorstep. BDU, check it out. We also have patriotthreads.org. I always got to give those guys a shout out. patriotthreads.org, apparel with a purpose. Use the promo code JMT, John Martin Talks, JMT, and you'll get 20% off of anything they have there. patriotthreads.org. They can produce some of the most magnificent t-shirts and patriotic apparel you can possibly imagine. Of course, we continue to tell you that we are now on Recoil TV. We have 2 YouTube channels. We have John Martin Talks, spell it all the way out. Need more subscribers and views there. Appreciate it. We're growing every day. But we're also on another YouTube channel called Recoil TV, and we have our own channel there. Check it out, because they not only have our show, which we're grateful to be on there, but if you're interested in anything that's Second Amendment related and how to use it, what the latest news is, what the latest weaponry is coming out, Recoil TV is your go-to place. All right, let's get started here. Well, I've got a letter here from our own great senator here in Florida, Rick Scott. Rick Scott, former 2-term governor, now 1-term senator from the great state of Florida. Before I get into it, I want to explain a little bit about the letter and give you a few caveats that I do have a personal relationship. I wouldn't call us like fishing buddies or anything, but I know Governor Rick Scott. I've supported him both in his 2 gubernatorial runs. I also supported him in his Senate run. In fact, locally, I was one of a handful of volunteers that represented the Rick Scott campaign in looking at the recall election statewide, but in our county of Alachua. So I've known Rick Scott. I'm a great admirer of Rick Scott. I would certainly consider voting for him for president should he run someday, which I know is definitely something that he is considering. I don't think that takes much speculation. So I have a good relationship with Rick Scott, and overall I think he was not only a tremendous governor for the state of Florida, but I think he's done an adequate job as senator. I have not followed his senatorial career quite as much, so I wanted to kind of explain this before I get into the letter. Now, the letter itself, let me tell you how I got it. I mentioned this yesterday, and of course, if you want to check our podcast, there's several ways to do it. You could go to Recoil TV, John Martin Talks Facebook page, or John Martin Talks YouTube channel. We're also on America's Voice News, and we've got their feed on our Facebook site from the speech or the rally that Donald Trump had last night in Georgia. Check it out. America's Voice News is a terrific alternative to the mainstream media. So if you're looking for something outside of Fox News, America's Voice News is a great place to go. But they're on let me back up. They're on Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV. You can download a free app on your Android or your iPhone. You can also look at them on channel 219 Dish Network and the Pluto channel. And we are rebroadcast along their streaming services on a daily basis. And we're live on their Facebook page every morning. Good morning, guys. Howdy, how are you? But let me tell you about this letter, okay? As I said yesterday's show, I had a friend of mine attend a rally. There were 2, it was kind of a car rally, if you will, or a truck, convoy. One group of them went down to Marco Rubio's house in the Miami area, and the other one, which my friend participated in, went to Rick Scott's house down in Naples. And basically all they did, they didn't trash the place, they didn't vandalize the place. They were typical Trump supporters. They were just patriotic, and they basically were showing, in this case, Senator Rick Scott, that they wanted him to support Josh Hawley, the great senator from the state of Missouri, who is challenging tomorrow the certification of the electors for Joe Biden. In other words, putting it into question, open to investigate some of these swing states and actually, hopefully, turn this thing to the rightful winner, in my opinion, Mr. Algorithm on Facebook. Due deference to Algorithm, most powerful man in the world, to actually give this election to Donald Trump. I shouldn't say give, because he's earned it. So anyway, my friend participated in this, took pictures and all that. Well, there was an organization, several organizations behind this, and one of them, and I'll let them remain anonymous, but I have all this documented, backing it up if I need to. This gentleman wrote a letter to Rick Scott, or an email, I guess, and basically was asking Rick Scott to join the challenge of the 2020 election with Josh Hawley and about a dozen other senators. And then Rick Scott wrote him back a response to all this, and that is the letter that I have, and it is genuine. I have done my investigation. All right, so let's get into this letter. It's only about 3 or 4 paragraphs, but I find it interesting, and I'm not trying to beat up on my friend Rick Scott. I'm just reporting the facts. You kind of judge it yourself. But I'm sure that this letter is very, I would say it probably represents a lot of senators' views on this, and I'm sure that this letter, or types of these kind of letters, have gone out to millions of people who are asking their senators to join with Josh Hawley. So I'm just going to use this as a template. It starts out this way, from Rick Scott. Thank you for contacting me regarding the 2020 election. I appreciate the opportunity to respond. Typical response right there. Mr. Scott in the letter says, I believe that every legal vote must be counted fairly and that President Trump has the right to fight for transparency. Well, right off the bat, I'm kind of wondering, what in the heck does that mean? Hang on a minute. I got to adjust this. Like I say, the perils of live TV. I got to shrink this down just a second. Bear with me. It's not my technician's fault. It is yours truly. The buck stops here, so to speak. All right, it says, but he says, I believe that every legal vote must be counted fairly and that President Donald Trump has the right to fight for transparency. The media does not pick the president. Voters do. So right off the bat, it's a political answer. Let's face it, Rick Scott didn't start out being a politician kind of like Donald Trump. He came from the private sector and won his first office that he ever ran for in governor. But to what extent he wasn't a politician, he has certainly learned from the best. And I don't necessarily mean that as a criticism, but this fight for transparency. See, this is something that we have become accustomed to with Donald Trump, and we're not getting it before Donald Trump, and it doesn't look like we're going to get it after Donald Trump. Maybe he's the only one that can do this. But and I think I'm speaking for a lot of you guys out there. Chime in on Facebook or whatever you're listening to and let me know how you feel. I'll respond to you as quickly as I possibly can. But I just want to know what you believe, sir. I want you to answer a question straightforward. Maybe we've been spoiled by Donald Trump, because Donald Trump, he gets asked a question, he answers it straightforward, and the press hates him for it. He doesn't put a lot of nuance on it, and sometimes people don't like him for it. He basically answers it almost like a Twitter response, and a lot of people are critical. But it says, let's read this line again that Rick Scott said. The media does not pick the president, voters do. But I want to ask you, sir, I would ask, and I believe the inquirer, the organizer of this event, is asking this question. Do you, Senator Scott, believe that Joe Biden won the election fairly and square? Fair and square. Do you believe that, sir? If the answer is yes, well, I could debate you on that. But there's really not a whole lot of discussion, and then vote your conscience. But if you don't believe it was fair and square, then what are you doing about it? What are you personally doing about it? Now, Florida had obviously a very good result for Donald Trump. So, maybe there's not much for Rick Scott to do when it comes to the state of Florida. But I would ask him, in his role as senator, in this challenge that Josh Hawley is, do you believe that Joe Biden fairly and squarely won this election? It's a yes or no. And if it's yes, then, we don't have a lot to talk about. If it's no, then my next question, a follow-up, would what are you doing about it? Because here's something I've been saying, but of course, if I say it, it bears repeating. You have to believe, in order to believe that Joe Biden won the election fair and square. And I'd love for Rick Scott, and first of all, let me just say, if Senator Rick Scott wants to respond to this, I would love to interview him, have him on the show. I would be, fair and square with him. And like I say, I respect Rick Scott. I've worked for the man in the political sense. And I'm not saying I don't support him now. I want to see, as I told you yesterday, this vote tomorrow is really it's a measuring stick. It's a moment. It is a defining moment for the GOP. And essentially, to me, and I'm not blanket stating this because maybe people can explain it. I want them to vote their conscience, by the way, because only then are we going to have an honest assessment. But I'm telling you right from the beginning, if you don't vote to join the challenge of Josh Hawley, I don't know that I can support you, whoever you are. And I do believe that that's something that is a measuring stick, a defining moment. I went into great depth about it yesterday, so check out the podcast. But let me ask you this. In order for you to believe that Joe Biden, yes, old Pinocchio Joe, Bunker Joe, Puxacani Joe, however you want to, Joe Biden won the election fair and square. These are some things you have to believe. First of all, you'd have to believe this, that if I told you on November 2nd, the day before the November 3rd election, that tomorrow, I'm going to make a prediction, that tomorrow President Trump will get the most votes in the history of any sitting president for re-election, in the history. And that he was not only that, but he was going to get 10 million more votes than he did in 2016. Which way would you bet on whether or not he would win or not? I can't imagine a person that wouldn't believe that Trump would win in a landslide. Well, that's exactly what happened. He got 10 million more votes on November 3rd than he did in 2016, and it was by far the most votes of any president ever running for re-election. Yet we're supposed to believe that he lost. On the other side of that same coin, so to speak, is that you have to believe that Joe Biden, yes, old Joe Biden, that couldn't tell his wife from his sister, yeah, that dude was the greatest candidate in the history of presidential politics, because old Joe got more votes than anybody ever running for president in the United States has ever gotten. Not only he got 12 million more votes than Barack Obama. Twice. Got 12 million more, and he got African Americans, and this is what is really perplexing. I'm not saying it's not real. I just want to meet these people. He got votes from people in places like Milwaukee, in places like Philadelphia, in places like Detroit, from black Americans that did not vote, were eligible to vote, but did not vote for Barack Obama. In other words, Joe Biden inspired these black Americans to come out and vote for him when they were not inspired to vote for Obama, not once, but twice. I'd love to meet those people and ask them point blank if they exist. So chime in if you're one of them, because I'd love to. I'd even invite you to maybe have you on the air. I want to know, what about Biden's message inspired you more than Barack Obama? So there's a lot of things you have to believe in order to believe that Joe Biden won this thing fair and square. So I would love to ask Rick Scott or any other senator that doesn't support Josh Hawley, and it doesn't look like that Mr. Scott is going to do that. He may change his mind, or I could be totally wrong, but we're going to continue with this letter, and you tell me. But I'd like to ask anyone who doesn't support the Hawley objection to explain how Joe Biden won this thing fair and square. That Trump's candor, man, we're already missing that, and he's still in there. But I'm wondering, Rick Scott, is he running for 2024? I can tell you this, that any of these senators, or even House members for that matter, that don't support Howley. I mess up his name from time to time. I don't know if it's Howley or Holly, but Howley, we'll call him Mr. Howley. I'm a big admirer, so I probably need to get his name down a little bit more. He may actually run in 2024. But if any of these people run for president and they don't support this objection, I don't see how I can possibly support them. I reserve the right to change my mind, but I don't see how we can support them. In fact, I'll take it a step further. I agree with the person that got this letter, and I'll read you a little bit of his response to this letter. As I say, I'm going to let him remain anonymous. But anybody who doesn't support this objection should be primaried the next chance we get in a Republican primary, wherever they are. This election has shown that we need major reforms to our, this is Rick Scott's words, back to this letter. This election has shown us that we need major reforms to our electoral system, and that is why I propose the Verifiable Orderly and Timely Election Results Voter Act. It's Senate Bill 4707 if you want to take a look at it. So he's saying that in this response, he's not committing to joining the objection, but he's saying I'm proposing to fix what happened. But that doesn't help President Trump right now, because I'm going to use the Democrats' term here, one of the great terms they came up with. If true, and then you can say anything you want after that. If true, I'd ask Senator Scott and any of the rest of these senators, how does that help the situation now? Because if we get, God help us, Joe Biden in, and ultimately probably Kamala Harris, and we don't win today in Georgia, by the way, get out and vote in Georgia. We're going to talk about the Georgia election a little bit more in just a moment. Vote now, please. The election is happening. If we don't do that, then we're going to lose our country. There might not be anything left in 4 years from now. You know, we may never have another Republican ever able to win nationwide office. If Donald Trump couldn't win re-election, getting 10 million more votes than he did in 2016, getting more votes than any sitting president in history. If he couldn't win with the army of people behind him, what makes you think that any Republican will ever win again? If we don't do something now, I don't think your bill, sir, is going to matter. So, we expect direct answers to direct questions. And I've been saying this now for the past few weeks, so you might as well get used to it. What we as voters have to do, regardless of what happens in Georgia today, regardless of what happens on January 6th, or ultimately, January 20th when we have an inauguration, God help us if it's Joe Biden. He's literally about 2 weeks away from being president at this point, and believe me, I don't want that to happen. But we have to educate ourselves so we can educate others. We have to motivate ourselves and motivate others, and we have to activate, do something, not just think about it, not just talk about it, but actually do something. And if we're educated, motivated, and activated, then I would put out a little bit of a warning to people like Rick Scott and other senators that don't join the Howley objection. We need to educate, motivate, activate, but what else rhymes with that? Eliminate. In other words, get them the heck out of office if they don't want to go America first. Back to Mr. Scott's response here. He's talking about his bill that he's proposing. The Voter Act establishes uniform standards for vote-by-mail systems across the country and ensures the timely and efficient counting of ballots with important protections to prevent it. First of all, sir, we don't need vote-by-mail, cheat-by-mail. It needs to go away. It needs to be a one-off, and we need to return to, I would even make a point, maybe we even need to do away with absentee balloting, but certainly absentee balloting needs to be something that you have to prove you need. You can't just automatically get it. And it needs to be highly documented that it is that person. And we need to get back as much as possible to day of voting. Day of voting. Early voting, if any, it needs to be extremely limited, and it needs to be in person, and it needs to be done at the state level. I'm not a big fan of federalizing the election, because let me just tell you, And let's read this next part, and then we'll get into that. The next part of the letter, it says, the bill creates a deadline for state election officials to tally and report the election results to avoid prolonged uncertainty in the outcome of a federal election. Well, this is where I think the points that Senator Scott is making here are valid. There's no question about that. But to federalize the election, which is going against what our founding fathers set up, I'm not saying that everything, the Constitution can't be changed, but let me ask you this. Can you name a federal program that really works well? I mean, I can't. There's not too many. Now, under President Trump, the VA has turned around. It's going to be very interesting to see which direction the VA goes in if, God help us, Joe Biden gets. But federal elections, I'm not so sure about that. And keep in mind, and I may have my numbers a little bit off, but I believe there are 35 states right now in the United States of America that are controlled by Republicans. What we need, because we don't need to win California. It'd be nice if we did, and I feel for the people out there. But what we need is to win those 35 states on an annual basis for president and for Senate and whatever elections. And so what needs to happen is those states, including some of the ones that are in this dispute right now, their legislature needs to tone it up. Let me just say this too, because I was listening to a show that I actually respect a great deal on the way in today on my satellite, and I kept hearing the person on the show, and it was on Breitbart. I'll just say it. I'm a fan of theirs. I've used their articles quite often, but he kept challenging his listeners to present evidence of fraud, evidence that could overturn an election. Well, we don't need to overturn the entire election. We need to get certain states turned around, okay? But here's the bottom line on that, ladies and gentlemen. Now, there's tons of evidence out there, and he kept saying the difference between evidence and proof. The problem, and where I totally disagree with him on this, is there was one big shot, and there may be others, but there was one big shot to overturn these states that are, Mr. Hawley even mentions in his challenge, and that was the Texas lawsuit. The Texas lawsuit suing those states, what was it, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, that they were suing them, and they had 18 or 20 some odd, including my great state of Florida, join with them. And basically what that lawsuit was saying, and it was, no one really argues that this wasn't true, because the Constitution leaves the election of president up to the states. It's basically, we have 50 statewide elections for president, not a national or federalized one like it sounds like Mr. Scott is proposing here. But the Constitution is very specific in that the only entity that has the right to change election law within those states is the state legislature, not the governor, not the Secretary of State, not the consent agreement in Georgia, and we'll talk maybe more about that in a little bit with Stacey Abrams and the two Republicans up there in Georgia. God help us. Get out. You got to get out and vote today and just overwhelm the situation. But the Texas lawsuit said that those states violated their own rules and the U.S. Constitution because they changed election law outside of the legislative process. And it's just factual, okay? It's just true. The problem, and this is what I would love to interview Mr. Scott about, is the U.S. Supreme Court, and this shocked me at the time because I really was excited. Go back and look at my show. I was excited about the possibilities of what Texas was trying to do, but the United States Supreme Court would not hear the evidence. So in response to all these people that say, where is your proof? The proof was there. I mean, there's all these other issues about dead people voting, about overcounting, about dominion. It's pretty convoluted and hard to actually prove. That's a big problem. But the fact that these state legislatures did not do their job or were usurped, went around and run around them, and the election laws were changed outside the legislative process is obviously unconstitutional. But the Supreme Court would not even hear the evidence. That is a problem. Because if they'd have heard the evidence and said, we disagree with it, then people like me could actually accept that. But what is so impossible for us to accept, Mr. Scott and other senators, the GOP, you need to be listening to me. What is impossible for people like me to accept is that Joe Biden won, and you won't even look at the evidence. You won't even hear the case. You won't even do your constitutional dadgum duty and look at it. So how are we supposed to accept this without any investigation and any actual hearing of the evidence? Most every case that has been dismissed, including the one at the Supreme Court level, dismissed it without actually looking at the evidence. Think about this. I get riled up a little bit here. If you had a family member that was murdered and the judge basically said, well, I'm going to let this person go free because I'm not even going to hear any of the evidence, and there was evidence to present, how would you accept that? Well, I feel like that President Trump's second term was basically killed without even an investigation. So I don't know how we expect. Anyway, let's get back to this letter. I'm sorry. Billy Bob, my psychic sidekick, says, get back with it. If you hadn't met my psychic sidekick, this is Billy Bob Bass. Yes, some of us are sicker than others, but he keeps me straight most of the time. He has a Twitter handle. It's at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. Okay, back to Rick Scott's letter. And I'll try to put this up on my Facebook site so you can see the whole thing unedited. Voting is fundamental to our democracy. Well, first of all, I got to stop you right there, sir. We don't have a democracy. If that's what you think we have, then no wonder you seem a bit confused. Remember, Benjamin Franklin said, when asked, what'd you give us? He said, a republic, if you can keep it. That's why I got to educate, motivate, and activate these senators, because they don't even know what they're running for. And it is back to Rick's words here. He said, and it is a sacred right that we must protect and cherish. I agree with him on that voting is fundamental. But that, sir, is what this challenge is about. That is why so many of us, and I got friends that are up there, and I'm praying for them, that I know I got a lot of viewers of the show because I've heard from you that are in D.C. now or will be there tomorrow or in the days ahead. And I pray for you guys there. We're going to have my good buddy, the head of Big Daddy Unlimited, Tony, and Sherry with an E, and of course I told you earlier, my producer up there, and I hope that they're safe and sound, but I'm going to try to interview them. We're hopefully going to give you some footage either later in the week or certainly by the beginning of next week, but I pray for everyone up there because it is a dangerous situation, not from Trump supporters, but this challenge, I would tell Senator Scott, I keep thinking about Governor Scott, and I got to say again, I'm a big fan of Rick Scott, but I don't like this letter. I'm just telling it like it is, and that's what I hope you've come to expect here. You won't get political correctness, but you will get my honest assessment, because as my buddy from PatriotThreads.org, remember the promo there, 20% off JMT, go there. Craig says the truth starts now. But that's what this challenge, Mr. Scott, Senator Scott, is all about. It is because, I want to read your words again, and it is a sacred right that we must protect and cherish. That's what we're trying to do, sir. Protect and cherish. And back to his letter, he says, I always say we need 100% participation and 0% fraud in our elections. That sounds like a pipe dream, but I get your point. He said, I look forward to working with my colleagues in the Senate to get this legislation passed and ensure smooth and secure elections. That's not, and with all due respect, Senator, that is not the question, sir. What about right now? And I ask again, Senator Scott and Senator wherever you are, in whatever state, if you're not on board with Senator Hawley's challenge from the great state of Missouri, then are you telling me, because I want you to vote your conscience, because it is going to be a deciding factor for me and millions of other people on how we pursue elections going forward and whether we support you in your individual states or not. I think a lot of people feel like I do. Are you telling me that you believe that Joe Biden, yes, old Pinocchio Joe Biden, actually won the election fair and square. If you believe that, then vote your conscience and the chips fall where they may. If you don't, then what are you doing about it right now? I don't care what, yes, we need to clean up our election system, but that's not what this is about. This is about the vote and illegal voting, because there were millions of illegal votes cast. Texas lawsuit would have proved that had the SCOTUS done their job. But let me read you, because he says this again, that I look forward to working, back to this letter, I look forward to working with my colleagues in the Senate to get this legislation passed and ensure smooth and secure elections. Now I'm going to read you a response from the person that inquired about this. And as I say, I'm going to let them remain anonymous, and I may invite them to come on the show. But this is what the email response to thousands of Trump supporters that are in this organization. Defend President Trump's landslide victory. This is what he's saying to Rick Scott. Victory in the 2020 election, and oppose the flawed electoral college vote on January 6th with multiple exclamation marks. If both Florida, and this, I'm with you, sir, 100%. He says, if both Florida senators, Rick Scott and Marco Rubio, do not do so, they will both lose their primary re-election bids in 2022. We patriots will see to that and make sure it happens. And that's what I would say, amen, and not hey, I'm just saying amen. And that is what we got to do. It's a defining moment, as I said yesterday. What happens tomorrow is a defining moment in this country. It is a defining moment for these career politicians. And we're going to educate ourselves, we're going to motivate ourselves, and we're going to activate ourselves and others. And if necessary, we're going to eliminate you guys in primaries. I want to make sure people understand that. I'm not calling for violence. I'm calling for voting you guys out. The swamp needs to be drained no matter what happens with President Trump. And we are the only ones that can ultimately do it with our vote. Primary these people out and get rid of them. Again, the conclusion of the letter here from Rick Scott. Again, thank you for contacting me regarding your concerns. I'm proud to represent all Floridians, and I'm working diligently to help get the necessary resources to Floridians to continue to combat this public health crisis. It's a well thought out letter. It's well done. It's well written. I don't know if he wrote it or a staff member. I don't know if this is boilerplate stuff, but I would assume that people all over this country are getting very similar letters from senators who are most likely, and I'm not putting words in the mouth, but it appears to me that Senator Scott is not prepared to support the challenge by Senator Hawley. It just seems that way. I could be wrong. I hope I am wrong. But it's a well thought out letter. But let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, bottom line on this. Hang on. Because I want to say this with as little emotion as possible. We're being played. We are being played. And I have made a commitment over the course of the last few years to tell you when we're being played. You're being played. Rick Scott, I hate to say it, he's playing the game. He's playing the Washington game. We are being played. And the GOP, because the Democrats, let me just back up. Democrats, we know what we're going to get from. I expect nothing but progressive nonsense from them. I expect that you can't say mother, father, brother, sister, amen, a woman. I expect all that. None of that surprises me. We need to get rid of them at every possible way. And you few Democrats that are left with sanity need to take your party back over. But I'm talking about the GOP, the grand old party, and I am a member of it. And we need to take this party over from the foundations up, the grassroots level up. And tomorrow is going to be a defining moment. But we're being played by all them. They're betting that you will just go home mad, happy, fat, happy, whatever, that you'll just go home, that Donald Trump is a one-off, as the Brits say, and that you'll just go back to living your life and like me, going fishing and not worried about it. I'm telling you right now, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll tell this to my good friend Senator Scott, I'm not getting back in the pot. I'm not jumping back in that pot. Donald Trump showed me that I was boiling all along. I wasn't simmering slowly. I was in boiling water. I just didn't know it. I've jumped out the pot and I'm not going back. And I'm telling you right now, if you don't have to be a supporter of President Trump. You may or may not like the man, but you got to support America first. Donald Trump has awakened us. If this movement, I've said it, and some people don't like it when I say it, but I'm just going to tell you the truth. If this movement was only about Donald Trump, which as great as he is as one man, it was doomed to failure. I don't believe that's the case. I believe Donald Trump has awakened Americans, and we need to stay woke, as they say. And we need to man the political ramparts, or we're going to have to man the real ones again. Educate, motivate, activate yourselves and others, and if necessary, after we see the vote tomorrow, eliminate. Vote them out. As I say, I'm praying for my friends and other people, all patriots across the board that are attending these rallies. I salute you for going there, and millions of people, or at least tens of thousands, plan to go there. Let me check my time. All right. We got a few minutes left. Let's get into this next story. This is a publication from The Hill. Biden during Georgia rally blasts Trump's whining and complaining. Now, Donald Trump did a rally last night with tens of thousands. I mean, I think they estimate at least 15,000 people there. It was a typical Trump rally, but he was pushing, of course, Perdue and Loeffler more than himself. But it was a great rally. People seem to enjoy it very much. But I got a question for you. Maybe you can answer this. How many people constitutes a rally? And I'm not talking about, barking dogs or horns blowing or whatever. Because they say Joe Biden had a rally. Donald Trump referenced it last night. He said, I think there were 14 people there. I heard some excerpts from it. And it didn't sound, there was some applause, but not the deafening cheers for Donald Trump. And like Donald Trump said last night, how could I have lost Georgia, when you look at that? But let's get into what some of the things that Joe Biden said. President-elect, these are not my words, they're the Hill's words. President-elect Joe Biden blasted Trump for whining and complaining about the election outcome and urged voters in Georgia to deliver a Senate majority to Democrats ahead of the state's Tuesday runoff election that will determine the balance of power in the upper chamber. Now, there's some question about what the turnout is going to be today, actually. And that there's speculation that there are a lot of Trump supporters that are turned off by the thing and may stay home. Don't you dare do that. That is being put out there to get the Democrats in power. As I've told you, there's 3 people in Washington, D.C. right now that I trust totally, let's put it that way. One of them is DJT. JMT trusts DJT 100%. And there's plenty of proof and good reason to do it. I also trust, and if you're new to the show, hear me out on this, I also trust Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. Nancy Pelosi just became Speaker of the House. Again, I trust that she is going to do all the idiotic stuff she proposes to do. Look what they're already doing. You can't say mother, brother, sister. Can you say cousin? I don't know. It's crazy. So I trust that Pelosi is going to be a wackadoodle and push the progressive agenda as far as she possibly can. I trust that if the people in Georgia don't do their dadgum job and the Senate majority leader becomes Chuck Schumer, that he will do exactly what he says he's going to do. Worse, we're going to change Georgia, then we'll take Georgia, then we're going to change America. And that means do away with the Constitution. When you hear them say fundamentally change America, they mean go outside the Constitution. And when people don't even know we're a republic who are elected to Senate, now you know why we got the trouble we do. But I trust Donald Trump. I trust those Democrats because I believe them. They're going to do exactly what they say they're going to do, and then some if we don't. I'm not saying, let me back up. I think it's pretty clear. I'm not saying Republicans are necessarily going to save the day, but we have a shot with them. We know what the Democrats are going to do, so please don't give them that guarantee by giving them power today. Do your job, Georgia. You're voting for all of us, man. You're voting for all of us. Speaking at a rally on Monday in Atlanta for Democrats, John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock That's the two people running the Democratic side. Biden accused former Senator David Perdue and Senator Kelly Loeffler of putting their loyalty to Trump ahead of the people of Georgia. Well, Joe, who is your loyalty to? Who is your loyalty to? Well, first of all, we know you love China. You're in the pocket of China. Your whole family is in the pocket of China. So I'd say some loyalty's there. But you yourself said just about 2 months ago that if you got elected, you'd be the most progressive president ever. And I take you at your word, sir. So I asked the people in Georgia, do you want the most progressive president ever? God help us if he actually walks up the stage or rolls down the stage on January 20th. If he becomes president, do you want to give him control of the Senate and the House? And maybe even the Supreme Court if they pack it? And, I'm pretty disappointed in the Supreme Court as it is, let alone if they pack it. Check my time, got a few minutes left. Biden also fumed at Trump over the rollout of the coronavirus vaccine, saying it had gotten off to a god-awful start. Excuse me. He accused the president of spending his time obsessing over the election loss rather than addressing the pandemic that has ravaged the nation. Now, this is from the guy who says, I am the Democratic Party, right? This is from the party who said it was impossible to have a vaccine by the end of this year, this past 2020. Impossible. Yet, here we have it. And they also came out and said, don't trust the vaccine because it's Trump's vaccine. Joe Biden himself said that. And now they're saying that it's not rolling out fast enough. Ridiculous, man. Biden said, listen to this. He said, getting America vaccinated will be one of the most difficult operational challenges this nation has faced, but we've known that for months, and this administration has gotten off to a god-awful start. By what standard? By what standard? He went on to say, the president spends more time whining and complaining than doing something about the problem. I don't know why he still wants the job he doesn't want to do the work. Preach it, Bunker Joe. I mean, he doesn't want to do the work, man. You haven't done a day's work in 50 dadgum years, man. I want to skip down to this part right here because we're just about out of time. Biden said politicians cannot assert or take seized power. It's given or granted by the American people alone. We can never give up. He said it's always the will of the people that must prevail. So today, tomorrow, go vote. Talking about Georgia. And I say, yes, go vote. According to what research I've done based on the early voting and the cheat by mail votes that they've got, we need to win this race for the Republicans in Georgia. We need 1 million people to vote for Perdue and Loeffler today. Go do it. I want to close with this. This is Biden. You got to listen to this, man. This is what he said at a rally. I mean, God, he admits this. He doesn't know any better. He said, I got elected when I was 29. And what is he, 99 now? No, he's like 89. He said, I got elected when I was 29 and 6 more times as a U.S. Senator from Delaware. He drops out the 8 years with Obama. And not once did I think I took an oath to any president, Democrat or Republican. So he's admitting he's been there for 50 years. And now he's the solution to the problem that we've created over the last 100 years or so. I know one thing. He took an oath to credit card companies, man. And every time I hear Joe speak, man, I think of the Godfather, man. I think him going, I did this for my family. I think about, the scene from, I think it's Godfather 2, where the young Godfather is walking through the street eating apples, and loving everybody, but while he's actually living an elite life. That's what I think, man. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the show today as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to John Martin Talks Facebook page, like it, share it with others. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Let's all pray for this nation, the president, because certainly they both deserve it, and for the great patriots that are descending on Washington today, and pray that the vote tomorrow goes the way we want it to. But above all else, like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.